Hello, I'm very excited to be here with all of you this morning. My name is Janine Markey. I'm the Director of Marketing at WorkGrid Software, and I'm going to be discussing today employee experience in the Intranet. Certainly not any new terms that you haven't heard, but I want to talk about how you can position your Intranet to be a key element of your employee experience strategy, and we'll get into that in more detail in just a minute. But for those of you who are not yet familiar with WorkGrid, just wanted to do a quick introduction because I think we're a little bit different than some of the other vendors here um, at this event. We focus on solving for the holistic vision of the digital workplace experience. You know, we have more digital tools than ever in the workplace, but having all those tools doesn't always equate to a better experience. And that is what WorkGrid is solving for. We want to make work simpler, and we want to make it more efficient, and we want to make it more engaging. Our platform integrates with the systems and tools found in the workplace to surface personalized and contextual information tailored to each employee in a modern experience. And we deliver it in the right channel for each employee, whether that's through our mobile app or integrating seamlessly into your existing intranet or an employee dashboard, for instance. Eliminating those productivity burdens employees face, allowing them to spend time on fulfilling work that results in engaging employee experience. So I want to kick things off by looking at the current state of the workplace. You know, we've seen some examples yesterday of some companies that have done some really incredible things to change their communication strategies to adapt to what has happened over the last couple months with COVID-19. But the fact is the pandemic put a huge spotlight on your internal communication strategy and overall digital workplace, as your work population most likely went to a digital first strategy overnight. So digital workplace technologies have moved from nice to have to must have status as companies were forced to adopt new tools to support employees working remotely, as well as new communication strategies so that we can reach our workers with the right information. This all has caused a fundamental shift for most organizations, and it's likely your intranet wasn't able to service your employees as the only tool to support your employees when the pandemic hit. Certainly it was probably hopefully part of the equation. And so you either made huge leaps to successfully migrate to a remote first strategy, or it was a wake-up call that your organization was forced to respond to and react to, ensuring employees had access to the digital tools they need to do their job and be informed. And your company may have had collaboration software in place or maybe video software in place, but for some companies, they had to implement it practically overnight. In fact, worldwide, there was a study done by Microsoft that showed companies spent $34.6 billion on cloud services. That's the equivalent of 2 years worth of digital transformation in just 2 months. It's pretty incredible, right? Companies were redesigning their business, their products, their service, jobs, people, all at a pace we've never seen. And you know, Microsoft says that type of spend was 2 years worth of spend in 2 months. But I think the pace of digital transformation for some companies, if it wasn't due to the pandemic, it would have took them much more than 2 years to reach that pace. So that's the silver lining in it, right? And so if you have been looking to implement, you know, new internal communication tools or digital workplace tools this year, and maybe that's why you're here at the event, you probably noticed there's a giant amount of new tools out in the market. This infographic here on the screen, this is from a company called StreamGo, and it's just scratching the surface of the number of internal communication tools out in the market. And it's not just the number of tools, but the vast array of different tools. There's internal comms tools, there's internet solutions, there's collaboration and project management tools, and they're all fitting into this bubble of in the internal communication space, and they all have overlapping features and functionalities of not only each other, but also tools that you probably already have in the organization. They're not just pointed solutions anymore. And, you know, I think an easy example to talk about and look at is we've seen this with Microsoft Teams, right? Microsoft Teams has probably made the most amount of waves for us this year as organizations are, one, not only trying to keep up with all the changes, but understand what role does a tool like Microsoft Teams and these other tools play in your internet strategy, and how do you bridge those gaps? Teams is a natural fit, I think, to expand into internal comms and into the digital workplace due to their nature of collaboration and pulling, people and teams together. But it's not just collaboration and communication tools that we see trying to enter the digital workplace market, if you will. There's organizations like Salesforce. traditionally it was just a sales tool, right? A customer relationship management tool. But they've been evolving their platform for a solution for the digital workplace. Even before the news of Slack this week, right? They were claiming to be a single destination for all your employees. There's a huge transformation going on right now in HR. The human capital management space is transforming from HCM to HXM, which stands for Human Experience Management. And what these tools are doing is they're moving away from a transactional system to an experience-based system. And what this means for your typical HCM company is they're investing to increase the abilities of their platform. They're evolving to be more than just an HR tool, but a place where employees go to find information and get work done and even collaborate on things. And so gone are the days where the internet is a single source of truth to find news and information, find coworkers, collaborate, and get work done. There are now a dozen of employee applications, all fighting for employees' attention. And so I think when we take a step back and, we look at it from the employee's point of view, it's really splintered and it's fragmented because the internet used to be the one system that supports me as an employee, supports me getting my job done and everything else in between. And I think today, now more than ever, with the majority of our workforce remote, we realize the importance of providing employees an easy way to find information, having that single source of truth. We can't just spin around in our chairs and ask our coworker a question about certain information or how to find something. So trying to navigate that on our own and using inaccurate information, because now there's all these other channels out there that may or may not be governed, can be frustrating, and it can have damaging effects. And even before the pandemic, even before, or I should say, even if you didn't implement a new tool during the pandemic, you consumed information and news much differently now, that unless you were a 100% virtual organization. But when I used to sit in the office, I sat next to the sales team. I could hear sometimes the customer support team. I could hear new information coming in. Now, if I want to hear about something, I have to read about it somewhere, either, stumble upon a conversation in Slack, someone has to set up a meeting with me. So you're kind of forced for digital always on. And that's where we're seeing employees experience some of that fatigue. And so where does this leave the internet, right? With all these solutions trying to be the next employee experience platform, I think it presents a threat to the internet because they're all multiple tools doing what your internet's core function used to be, right? They're shadowing your internet. And even before the internet competition, if you will, your internet may have been at risk. These are two surveys that were run this year, one by Forrester and one by Gartner, showing that 90% of intranets fail to achieve their goals, and that intranets usually come in dead last when it comes to user satisfaction. Now, I know over yesterday and this morning, I've seen some pretty incredible case studies of some great intranets. So I know these stats don't represent all the intranets out there, but what I fear is all the hard work we've put into our intranets. And what happens when these new applications get rolled out more and more? How will your internet stack up against the sprawl of information across all these new tools and channels that employees are being presented with? Will employees choose the new internet or the internet, right? And so this is where we have an opportunity to ensure the internet doesn't get left behind. We've responded and we've reacted, and now it's time to enable the future of the workplace. As we continue to rethink our strategies behind how the physical and the digital workplaces intersect, one thing will be clear. We will have to rethink what the experience is for employees and how technology will be used to support them. And it's going to be that focus on employee experience that's going to drive the highest importance and that lasting change. And that's really is the next wave for the digital workplace. As everything becomes digitized, the next big thing will be digital engagement, where we focus on simplifying experiences for employees. And we're already seeing vendors try to do that today across the gamut. And so what we need to do is make sure in this wave of employee experience that your intranet plays a key role in the strategy. Now, I know none of you here would undervalue your intranet, but we need to ensure the rest of your organization doesn't undervalue your intranet. What we don't want to see is IT maybe roll out, new apps and functionality that are available, like a polling system in Microsoft Teams, when internal comms has a polling system they use. And again, these decisions will probably happen unintentionally. They think it's with good intentions, right? Teams has a polling function. They have all these great apps and use cases they're rolling out. But if you're not part of that conversation, that broader conversation, then what happens to the polling tool that you have on the internet, or the collaboration piece, or the portal you set up for HR? Now HR is pushing people to this new HR tool they rolled out. So your internet has to be part of the digital employee experience strategy. So I'm going to walk through some strategy tips on how to get your house in order, and we'll look at how technology can support this approach. So the first thing we need to think about into tip number 1 here is we need to put employees at the center of the digital workplace. For some organizations, this is going to be a new approach, because when you think about your intranet in the digital workplace, for years we were saying, the internet was the front door to the digital workplace, is where, employees could go, start their day, and it would connect everything and bring everything together. But that's not the case anymore, right? We see on the screen here, we have all these applications all trying to do the same thing. So we can't expect employees to just go to the internet to connect to all the information, people, documents, and such. And quite frankly, we'd be ignorant to continue on the path thinking that way. So the internet will be part of the equation. It should be part of the equation, but it will be a touch point. It will be a channel. It won't be the only entry point anymore. Employees live in different systems, depending on their role, depending on their location. Some employees may start their day in the morning in the internet, while others may start their day in something like, Salesforce or CRM or Microsoft Teams or Slack. And so the internet has to be part of something bigger. And this is the digital employee experience, or the digital workplace experience, all these terms that you can use them kind of interchangeably sometimes. But this shift will definitely demand a new strategy and approach, and it's going to demand modern technology with flexible delivery approaches to create compelling digital workplace experience. And so one of the first things we need to ensure in terms of getting your house in order is you got to get the ownership right. If you want to avoid, IT and HR unintentionally kind of overshadowing your internet and adding to the digital sprawl, you need formal ownership for the experience of your digital workplace. That is in how your employees engage with enterprise technology. And this step can be very difficult because it flies directly in the face of how things historically have been approached in organizations. Most companies may have ownership for specific tools, like your intranet. You might have an intranet owner, and you might have a steering committee. You meet and you bring in different stakeholders, right? Or if you're smaller or mid-sized organization, maybe you have an end-user computing group department, but it's unlikely that they actually own the experience of how employees engage with enterprise technology across your organization. And so you've probably heard individuals talking about employee experience being a team sport and bringing in the right teams, maybe forming a steering committee. And in theory, that's all a good idea. But I'm actually going to challenge you to think a little bit more broadly, because just bringing in the right teams or stakeholders together, every team's going to go off and solve for their own department, which naturally you'd expect, because every line of business has their own budget, projects, and objectives. And so let's say, for example, you have a meeting on employee experience. You're talking about initiatives for Q1 of 2021. And what's going to happen is, everyone's aligning to employee experience. You might even have the same vision for your employee experience, but HR is going to go and say, okay, we're going to focus on internal talent mobility. IT is going to roll out a new support portal. They're going to do a new modern, UX on that. And finance is going to roll out a new mobile app for submitting expenses to make it easier. All great initiatives, and probably will have a positive, results, but they're all going to use different tools, and they're all going to have different user experiences for the employee. And again, especially in the HR space and even some of the other spaces, what we're finding is these tools have a lot of additional capabilities, and they overlap other tools in the enterprise. So then that's where you get that fragmented experience for employees. And having one tool to do everything obviously would be impossible. So what we need is formal ownership on the digital employee experience. You're still going to have your stakeholders, and one of those should be the internet owner or the internet team. And this owner is going to work with your employees and other teams across the enterprise, ensuring the vision is delivered and represented equally across all the stakeholders, and provide that strategic vision so that those separate stakeholders don't go on those individual paths the wrong way. And we believe getting formal ownership right, you really can take a product management approach where you treat the experience like a product and your employees are consumers. And this ownership team becomes the glue. It becomes the glue that binds together the separate parts of the employee experience. And the end result is you'll get a holistic approach to employee experience, where the experience puts the employee at the center, not the different technologies. And to treat your employees as consumers, we can actually borrow a page, from the customer experience playbook, right, which has been proven and tested methods that we've seen work in the consumer world. And the mind shift for IT is going to be delivering experiences, not systems and services. It's a very similar approach your business takes when designing the customer experience. You no longer focus on delivering an end product to your customers. You think very carefully and probably invest very largely, right, in the experience. And the experience for your customers is looked at holistically. Every interaction is carefully considered. In the consumer world, it's all about removing friction points from your consumer's intent. Regardless if they're trying to make a purchase, they're trying to contact customer support, you're trying to make that a simple, good experience, because you know what, every experience your customers have adds up to their total customer experience and impacts if they'll continue to do business with you. So it really starts by developing an understanding of your employees, since those are the people you're designing the experience around. You want to build out personas so you can have coverage, different employees in different job functions, different locations. They use tools within your organization differently, and they all have different needs. So it's very important to be able to map out your different personas. And then next, you'll want to understand what is the greatest impact on employee experience. So you can look at those use cases and run them through each persona and see what the experience is. If you're looking at onboarding, for instance, what does the experience look like when you onboard a manager versus a field rep versus a call center rep? Are there things that you can improve the onboarding experience for those particular reps? And when thinking about moments that matter, onboarding is a great use case because it has such an impact to employees and how they do in the business. But a lot of times that's the problem, is that companies only think of those HR initiatives, onboarding, anniversaries, promotions, offboarding, and those are certainly important events. But limiting opportunities to engage employees and foster goodwill to just a handful of significant moments, especially ones that sometimes years apart can happen in between them, it's just not enough. An employee's day-to-day experience, for example, is going to be critical for success, and that's where most of the digital workplace comes into play too, right? That's where your day-to-day experience, getting your job done, you use an array of digital tools. And so if you think about it, it makes sense naturally. If an employee goes to work every day and is unable to be successful in his or her job and struggles to focus on impactful work, what you've hired them to do, they're not going to be productive. They're not going to be engaged. They're going to be disengaged and frustrated. And so the day-to-day experience is actually a great way to find, those moments that matter. And you'll want to shadow your employees, actually conduct user studies, go beyond surveys, actually sit down and see how an employee completes a process. What does that end-to-end process look like? Not what does it just look like when they use system A to do task X. What is, if you have to do a certain process, it's usually multiple steps and multiple systems you have to access. Look at the end-to-end process for specific moments. And sometimes it can be difficult to determine which moments have the greatest impact on the employee experience or where to start. So look for some criteria, and we have some examples here that you can use, and we have more that we use with our customers as well. So if you're interested in this conversation, happy to follow up on it. But things like high volume or level of repetition, the degree of difficulty, to what degree do employees dread completing an action, password resets and benefit reminders are a great example where we see employees always wait to the last minute, and then that causes them, employees are locked out of their computer, and then it becomes a burden on your HR team. Just giving employees more notifications and more time probably isn't the answer they need. Go in, analyze what is it like to do a password reset, and how can we make that process easier for them. And don't overlook small things and small delighters. Sometimes those can have really big impacts as well. And ultimately, to effectively follow, customer experience best practices, you need to put yourself in your employees' shoes. And when you do that, what you'll probably find is employees don't care so much about the systems within the enterprise. Yes, certainly, I'm in marketing. I'm probably care about what marketing tools and resources I'm using to do my job, but they aren't necessarily thinking about all those tools that they have to use just to be an employee. They are thinking, they're not thinking, what is the software that I need to order, equipment. I need to order a chair, right? My chair at home is really uncomfortable. I need a new chair. And different personas use different parts of different systems, yet we give them all each the same experience. So you can see where it's a little broken. And make sure you consider the human side as well to any process. Consider onboarding, right? You might feel anxious or confused of your expectations of starting at a new company. So one, you'll want to find out how an employee feels today, and then think about how you want them to feel. And if you want them to feel excited and confident, what type of experience can you deliver to the employee to help make that onboarding experience change to make them feel that way? So kind of went through a lot here on strategy changes, but what about technology? How do we build experiences that actually put employees in the center, where you can actually design experience around the employee using the systems you already have, not the other way around. There's a reason in the customer experience world why your digital teams utilize digital experience platforms to design end-to-end experiences for customers across the range of touch points and the ways they interact with your brand. But in the world of employee experience, there traditionally hasn't been a platform designed specifically for the employee experience. So let's take a look at what we need, because we need to adapt. Firstly, multi-experience is going to be the future. And we need to be thinking today how we support what are our needs today, which we might already be behind on, right? Some of us didn't even have mobile until recently, and maybe that was an issue when the pandemic hit. We can't predict what's going to happen. So what we can do is set ourselves up for success so that we're able to scale to support the needs of the future. Because the way users experience the digital world it's undergoing a significant shift. And so what multi-experience really focuses on is a consistent experience regardless of the touch point. So today, a touch point of choice, apps are very popular. Conversational interfaces are becoming popular for service centers, but who's to say what comes next? It could be voice. When voice-enabled devices first came out, we thought they'd probably never enter the workplace, but now a lot of us are working from home. We don't know there's really no way of telling. So being prepared to meet employees where they are in the moment is important, and to focus on the channel that is best for their needs, right? If you have employees driving trucks across the country or in a warehouse, they might need different touch points than the customer service representative in the office when performing tasks. And it's not as simple as copying over functionality or service from one channel to another. It's about adapting the experience to cater to each device or touch point. In our consumer lives, we interact with brands, digital touch points, it's in a completely consistent manner. My favorite example is Domino's. They have currently over 15 ways to order a pizza. Talk about, they're making sure there is no friction point getting between you and ordering that pizza. If you just sat down on the couch, you think you're hungry, your phone's in the kitchen, like I don't feel like getting up, I'm lazy, maybe I'm not really that hungry. No. You can order that pizza through your smart TV. You can order it through Siri and Google. You have multiple options, and it's a consistent experience if you go back into the kitchen and you can finish that ordering right on your phone. And it's not only Domino's providing amazing digital experiences, it's their back end. It's how the infrastructure they're using, the platform that they're using to deliver those front end experiences that is tailored to me, it's personalized, it's easy to use. And the back end is not simple, right? There's all these services that they're running, and this is how a lot of the other consumer apps that we use operate just as well. So you need a platform that is open and extensible and it's adaptable. And it can change as your business needs change so that you can keep up with the pace of innovation. And I think Uber is another great example I want to quickly share here. This is obviously what the app looks like. It's easy, it's simple to use, it's tailored to me as an individual, it's based on my preferences. And as an end user, I'm completely abstracted from what's happening behind the scenes. And what's happening is there's a giant infrastructure consisting of thousands of services and an enormous amount of data to personalize and optimize experience. Now imagine if Uber made you log in to one system to pick out your car and another system to select your location, just all to set up a ride. Nobody would use the application, and you get what I'm getting at. That's what we make employees do at work. When you think about that end-to-end process, if it involves multiple services, like most things do today, In the consumer world, we have one pretty front-end app that talks to all those services and pulls everything together. In the enterprise world, we have to access all those individually. And it's messy and it's splintered and it's fragmented. And so what we need to do is let the technology pull and consume the right data, the right functions, and talk to each other and create the right digital experience for our employees versus having the employees take the multiple steps across multiple systems. And so to effectively bridge those silos, we need a platform that will allow us to manage the experience as its own layer. Very just like Uber is, it's a service-oriented and microservice architecture leveraging APIs to enable the flexibility to consume information and services from your systems of record so you can create and deploy those digital experiences that are tailored to your employees and across any channel that they need them, whether that's your intranet, whether it's Microsoft Teams, whether it's a mobile app, whether it's some other type of employee portal. And so now all those apps and data that used to be trapped in silos can serve as the building blocks to creating a high-value digital experience. And you really are now able to create an experience that's 100% focused on the employee because you're separating the user experience from your source system. You could have a CRM system is a perfect example. You have marketing users, you have sales users, you have customer experience users, and then sometimes you have other users. Now, a sales rep is going to live in the CRM all day long, but me as a marketing manager, I don't go into Salesforce that often anymore. And so I could have an experience for me that was just pulling out certain KPI data that's very important to me. And a customer support manager could have an app that just shows him reporting that's important to him. Now, certainly, yes, we could both log into the CRM and run those reports ourselves, right? But again, the idea is you can customize the front end to those different personas and on different channels. Maybe I want a full dashboard on desktop, and we have a field rep who's on the road and needs to see that as a mobile experience. So no one has to have a sacrificed experience. So I want to take a look at an experience, this concept of the experience layer in action. So we can kind of put the use case together and you can kind of get a better understanding. So we talked about, you need to look across and find those moments that matter. So one of the moments that, is really important to employees, and it's important for organizations because employee well-being is important. Regardless if you can actually go on holiday and fly somewhere, taking time off for yourself is very important. So we want to make sure we have a good process to allow employees an easy way to see how much time they have off, understand the time off policies, and how to submit time off. And so hopefully you have a digital process, and just because it's digital doesn't mean it's any simpler, to be honest. It's likely, multiple step process where the employee has to log into their PC, probably through VPN, log into the HR system, run a report to see how much time you have off. And then once you've done the HR system, you have to go into Outlook. You need to block your calendar and sit out of the office. Now, not everyone you work with might look at your Outlook calendar every day. So what about those, cross collaboration teams you work with, departmental teams you work with? So now you probably have to go on Slack too and make sure that everyone on Slack knows that you're going to be out for a certain period. So what could we do? How can we recreate this experience where you can deliver that time off information and time off services, so the ability to take time off, where and when your employees need it, the right channel via the right experience, where the experience is based on intent, right? So what they're trying to achieve, what is their outcome? We call that outcome-driven design. I want to take a day off. I need to go on vacation. So I'm going to show you here is an example of what we did for a customer where we designed the front-end experience to be a simple experience, a purposeful experience. Go back a slide here. This is an example of a intranet. So Navit Financial is our intranet. And you'll see there's a toolbar here on the left-hand side, and you can see we can see our time off balance. We have 240 hours. And this is what we call a micro app, where we're pulling out specific functionality from our time off management system. And the employee can see their time off at a glance. Then they can click to submit their time off, and they were able to submit their time off right from the app, as well as set their out of the office message and block their calendar. So those 3 steps all put right in together, as well as they're able to see their time off right at a glance without even completing anything. And so this experience looks great on the intranet. It's a great place for the intranet, but we talked about how the intranet's not the front door to the digital workplace anymore. Your employees are in all these other systems. They're and they might need mobile experiences. So let's take a look now. Using the same platform, we can also deliver this as a micro app on mobile. And maybe we decide that mobile's not the best way to deliver a time off experience, or we just want to offer different experiences. What about a chatbot? What would a chatbot experience look like? And the chatbot is great because it can pull in other information based on their intent. So not only might they want to book time off, but they might want to know what the policy is, and you can kind of have that all packaged together and delivered that via chatbot. So this here is what the chatbot experience could look like. And again, this could be available through voice. So maybe you have, an employee working from home. You can quickly say, how many days off do I have? And through the chatbot, you could be able to see this once and if voice was enabled, that is. Maybe you have teams that are in Microsoft Teams all day. So again, think about your intranet, think about how you're pulling in, integrations of systems. Is your intranet capable to live inside of Microsoft Teams to make that information now easy from Teams? And you can see how everything is working together, where your intranet's now not this separate system that doesn't have, the functionality the employees are looking for, like viewing my time off balance. So everything can work together or work separately as it needs to. And so that's the end user experience. But what about managers? Managers need to approve time off requests in a timely manner. What does this experience look like? So maybe the experience is on mobile, they receive a approval card where they can quickly see the employee has requested time off and approve that. And we send them push notifications to make sure that they know a request has been actioned of them. And this is all possible because you're looking at your digital employee experience and delivering the right experience to the right user at the right time. There was a great presentation yesterday talking about, it was from Alex, and she talked about the mission of her modern digital workplace. And I wrote it down here because she had articulated it so nicely. Their mission was to deliver easy to find, accurate, timely, and consumable content to our end users in the right technology, where and when they need it in order to enable and accelerate their success. So again, if you want to be able to offer employees different things and you're doing it in the right technology, so maybe that's your intranet, maybe there's a mobile app, which maybe your entire intranet or part of your intranet, maybe there's things in Teams. And so I put together kind of a mini preview for you here so you could see what are other scenarios. We looked at the time off experience, but what are other scenarios and what could those look like in terms of bringing together other things that may be important to employees. So maybe you want to be able to deliver communications and have those communications tailored and targeted to employees based on their role or their location. We saw this with COVID, where you had to send notifications to certain offices or closures or different procedures. Send employees the ability to take action on things like expense approvals and time off request and procurement request very simply with a few clicks without getting kind of clogged down in your inbox or having to access those systems. Building out micro apps, pulling out specific functionality from things like your time off balances. Here we are looking at my payslip information. So what are those things that are important to employees that you can pull out and make it easy for them to find and access? To having a chatbot where you can answer questions quickly or even automate help desk and self-service centers. With the pandemic, I think most companies are experiencing a lot of calls into their service centers. So how can you try to automate some of those? And it's not just about cost, although you will save significant amount of cost. You're going to deliver a better experience to your employees. They're going to be much more satisfied, and it's going to allow some less burdens on your IT staff as well for some of those more simple, straightforward responses, and allow them to focus on more strategic work. And so, these changes don't happen overnight. So wanted to quickly look through and talk about some tips for success. And so the time off example we looked at was a great example. The concept of micro apps, pulling out specific functionality and having that as a different front end. What you wouldn't want is just a sprawl of, function-specific apps or chatbots across the enterprise that deliver a better user experience but create a splintered experience. And we've already seen this where vendors sitting in the HR space, for instance, have started describing their offering as employee experience products. And sometimes, however, they're really only narrowly focused on just one element, employee recognition, onboarding, engagement, while others have done a decent job of building out additional functionality outside their core offering. But there's no escaping if you were to couple your experience in, so if you decided I have this HR system, I'm also going to add in the ability for employees to access IT tickets and HR tickets together, that would be a better experience for your employees, but you got to be careful. So tread lightly when thinking about coupling, and think more about striving for an integrated digital experience where if you decide to replace your HCM or your ERP or whatever it is, or even your intranet, you not have everything locked. You don't have now your employee experience locked into those platforms. So that's one of the great things about WorkGrid is, I showed you that toolbar example. That toolbar can follow you along if you have a SharePoint intranet and then you decide to move to another platform, or if you want to offer similar experiences to some employees that don't use an intranet, maybe they have some type of manufacturing portal they use, you could put it on there. So you're not now forcing every employee into something like an HR tool, where that's not where, maybe all of your personas are going to live. So think really carefully about coupling experiences and strive more for that integrated experience where possible. And again, that's where it's going to be key to have a separate platform that can manage the experience versus your HCM platform also managing the experience. You need to separate them and then integrate them where it makes sense. And that's where you can have your cake and you can eat it too, because you're going to have great experiences and you're going to have those systems that are powerful. They are great. Not all of them have the best UX, but they keep your business running. And they were significant investments for your business, and they were large-scale deployments at the time. This is just an example here, talking about integrate where it makes sense, integrate things together, but don't have everything coupled into one platform. And getting the foundation in place to build the experiences for your employees, this is what's needed for the building blocks. Growth is going to require continual attention to refine the approach. So we always recommend start small, implement quick and easy wins that will get attention, get buy-in, start with high volume or high emotion use cases. Think about those things that really frustrate employees, and you can ask employees what those frustrating issues are and commit to fixing them. And even add in some small delighters in between the bigger fixes, and involve employees. Take a bottoms-up approach, and involve them in every step of the way. If you use design thinking, make sure you get their feedback at every stage of the process. Have them help look at prototypes, get feedback. So again, feedback at every stage, and make sure you're measuring outcomes, not just outputs. I think in the internal communication space, we tend to sometimes get hung up on, how many communications did we send, and how many page views in the internet. But what's going to matter in experience in terms of effectiveness are the outcomes. So is the experience engaging? Are you saving employees time, or is there cost saving? What about productivity and satisfaction? How can we measure those and bring those back to business goals? I hope those strategy notes and some of the examples there, really opened your minds a little bit on how to think about the internet and how it plays a bigger role into your digital employee experience. Thank you again.